Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The White House is embroiled in even more controversy over former Staff Secretary Rob Porter after FBI Director Christopher Wray testified to the Senate that the FBI told the White House about the physical and verbal abuse allegations that were holding up Porter's background check months earlier than the White House has admitted.
The FBI submitted a partial report on the investigation in question in March, and then a completed background investigation in late July. That is soon thereafter, we received requests for follow-up inquiry, and we did the follow-up and provided that information in November, and then we administratively closed the file in January.
That was FBI Director Christopher Wray. Porter resigned after both of his ex-wives accused him of verbal and physical abuse, and photos were released showing Porter's first wife, Colby Holderness, with a black eye, which she said she suffered after he punched her in the face. The FBI director's testimony further exposes how Trump administration officials allowed Porter to continue working in the White House despite the serious accusations of domestic violence. In fact, CNN reports White House officials were considering promoting Porter to Deputy Chief of Staff under General Kelly before the photos were released. President Trump has repeatedly defended Porter, emphasizing Porter claims he's innocent. Trump himself has been accused of sexual harassment or assault by at least 16 women. A second federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from canceling DACA, the Obama-era Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which gives some 800,000 young undocumented immigrants permission to live and work in the United States. On Tuesday, Judge Nicholas Garofis in New York issued an injunction to temporarily keep the program in place, warning its cancellation would have profound and irreversible social costs, writing, quote, "It's impossible to understand the full consequences of a decision of this magnitude," unquote. This comes as lawmakers on Capitol Hill are continuing to debate the future of DACA. Republican lawmakers are pushing to include an amendment to punish so-called sanctuary cities as part of any immigration legislation to protect dreamers. In more news on immigration, activists and civil liberties advocates are issuing warnings over reports that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, known as ICE, is seeking to become an intelligence agency. Critics say the move would give ICE access to an array of raw intelligence data that could lead to further abuses as ICE carries out President Trump's mass deportation efforts. This is Jack LaPerouse of the independent watchdog agency, the Project on Government Oversight.
Well, I think if we've seen in the last year ICE demonstrate a willingness to be more severe and more arbitrary in its arrests, deportations, and actions, this would enable them to a much higher degree. It's really like taking someone who you're not comfortable giving a kitchen knife to and handing them a grenade.
Meanwhile, the chief counsel for ICE in Seattle has been charged with stealing the identities of 7 immigrants in order to defraud credit card companies. Rafael Sanchez has resigned from the agency amidst the charges and faces 1 count of aggravated identity theft and another of wire fraud. This comes as President Trump's longtime personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, says he personally paid $130,000 to former porn star Stephanie Clifford, better known as Stormy Daniels, several weeks before Trump's election to keep her from going public about her 2006 sexual encounter with Donald Trump. Cohen says he was never reimbursed for the payment to silence Daniels. U.S. intelligence officials claimed Tuesday Russia's likely planning to meddle in the U.S. 2018 midterm elections. This is U.S. Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates.
Social media, false flag personas, sympathetic spokesmen, and other means to influence to try to build on its wide range of operations and exacerbate social and political fissures in the United States. There should be no doubt that Russia perceived that its past efforts as successful and views the 2018 U.S. midterm elections as a potential target for Russian influence operations.
The intelligence community's warnings during Tuesday's Senate Intelligence Committee hearings contradict President Trump, who's repeatedly cast doubt on whether Russia meddled in the 2016 presidential election. This is separate from Trump currently under investigation for allegedly colluding with Russia ahead of the presidential election. The United States is refusing to commit any direct money for reconstruction in Iraq after the U.S.-led coalition bombing campaign against ISIS militants destroyed homes, schools, hospitals, critical infrastructure across wide swaths of Iraq. The United Nations says 40,000 homes were destroyed in Mosul alone. At an international conference in Kuwait this week, the Iraqi government has asked for $88 billion to rebuild. So far, other countries have pledged only a combined $4 billion. The United States has offered a $3 billion loan. This comes after the U.S. Senate reached a 2018 budget deal that includes $700 billion for the military in the United States. In Israel, the justice minister has sparked outrage by saying maintaining a Jewish majority in Israel justifies committing human rights violations. Speaking at a conference on Monday in Tel Aviv, Ayelet Shaked said, quote, "There is place to maintain a Jewish majority even at the price of violation of rights," unquote. During her speech, Shaked also defended the controversial so-called Jewish nation state bill, which would legally define Israel as the national home of the Jewish people. Critics say if passed, the bill could be used to justify the widespread discrimination against Israel's non-Jewish citizens. In more news on Israel, the police have recommended indicting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on criminal corruption charges. Netanyahu is under investigation in 2 separate criminal corruption cases. In one case, he's accused of trying to push tax breaks to benefit an Israeli billionaire Hollywood producer after receiving gifts from him. In the second case, Netanyahu is accused of trying to strike a deal to secure more favorable coverage from a leading Israeli newspaper by offering to curtail the circulation of one of the newspaper's rivals. The group PEN America has announced it'll honor 2 imprisoned Reuters journalists, Wallon and Kya Soe, with this year's Freedom to Write Award. The 2 have been jailed in Burma after investigating a massacre committed by the Burmese military against Rohingya Muslims in the village of Indin in northern Burma. They appeared in court earlier today in Burma after having been charged with violating Burma's Official Secrets Act. Later in the broadcast, we'll go to Burma for more. In Ethiopia, a senior Oromo opposition leader has been released from prison after protesters staged widespread demonstrations Monday to demand his freedom. Bekele Gerba is the Secretary General of the Oromo Federalist Congress. He was arrested in 2015 amidst an uprising in Oromia over efforts to displace them from their land. After being released, Gerba called for the release of other Oromo political prisoners.
There are still thousands and thousands of people languishing in jail, so our release alone should not be considered as the release of all the Oromo from prisons, and you should not stop your struggle. Our struggle should not stop as long as there is a single Oromo remaining in the prison.
Again upheld an arrest warrant for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Assange's lawyers have been trying to argue the British arrest warrant for jumping bail should be rescinded because it's contrary to the public interest and because it's related to a Swedish sexual assault investigation against Assange, which has since been dropped. Tuesday's ruling comes after 1 week ago the same British judge, Emma Arbuthnot, ruled for the first time to not drop Assange's arrest warrant. Back in the United States, the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CAIR, is suing Southwest Airlines on behalf of a recent University of California, Berkeley graduate who was removed from a Southwest plane in April 2016 and prohibited from reboarding after a fellow traveler complained about him speaking Arabic. Khairaldin Makhzoumi was talking to his uncle on a cell phone as he was boarding the flight when a fellow passenger claimed he was using words related to an attack. In fact, he was using the word inshallah, which means God willing, and is one of the most commonly used words in the Arabic language. And American Olympian Shaun faced questioning about accusations of sexual harassment after he won yet another Olympic gold medal for the men's snowboard halfpipe at this year's Olympic Games in South Korea. White's been sued for sexually harassing his former bandmate, Lena Zwaida, and then firing her without paying her after she rebuked his behavior. At a news conference today in which female journalists say the Olympic Committee officials only called on male journalists, Shaun White tried to claim the lawsuit and accusations were gossip.
you know, honestly, here to talk about the Olympics, not, you know, gossip. So, but I don't think so. I am who I am, and I'm proud of who I am, and my friends, you know, love me and vouch for me, and I think that stands on its own. So
absolutely.
But so you're saying that the allegations against you are gossip?
I think we're here to talk about the gold medal and the amazing day we had today. Thank you. So if we don't have another question, why don't we go ahead and just pass the mic? Thank you so much.
I'd like it to be addressed just a little bit. I mean,
like I said, I think we're here to talk about the gold medal today and the amazing day we just had.
I feel like I addressed it.
Shaun White reached a private settlement with Zueda months ago. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.